CRN TV is connecting you with the industry leaders who are protecting us from the latest security threats. Join me, Cass Cooper, as we highlight the expertise of women who are driving innovation and solving today's toughest cyber challenges. Welcome to Channel Women in Security. Hi, everyone. Welcome to Channel Women in Security. I am your host, Cass Cooper, and I'm here with Emily O'Carroll. So glad to see you, Emily.
Good to see you, Cass. Thanks for having me.
Absolutely. I'm really excited to talk about your role as a CISO and a virtual CISO and consulting in-house, all the wisdom that you have to share with our listeners. But before we get into that, tell us a little bit about yourself and what you're doing now.
Of course. So I am a California native, although I did take some time moving around the country in my earlier years all over California and spent a brief 2+ year stint in Chicago. I've been in cyber my whole career, although I think when I started out 20 years ago, I didn't know that I was doing cyber. A lot of us didn't, right? Back in the early days. But now reflecting back in the world of cyber that we know today, I realize I've been in cyber since about 2005. Have moved around to different verticals within cyber, moved into a leadership role in 2010, I think it was. Gosh, that was a while ago. And then moved into a head of security, which eventually became a CISO role when I was at Callaway Golf. And it's taken some turns, but still in a similar role today at GuidePoint Security.
Absolutely. Well, I love to hear more about your experience and your expertise. And I think you're right. You know, the world of cybersecurity and just AI and tech and the channel in general has evolved so much over the last 20 or so years. So how have you were, boots on the ground, like you've seen it evolve over that time. So how have you seen the threat landscape change and maybe a little bit also of, what's the same in the threat landscape, especially in how it impacts the channel?
Right. So I think, back in the day, we were talking more physical hardware, harden your perimeter. Most things were on-prem, the cloud. People started talking about the cloud and what does the cloud mean in the 2010s. And the world has changed significantly, right? Everyone is remote nowadays. I think we had more traditional security where it related to access and firewalls and setting all those up. And now we're talking about, like I said, cloud. We're talking about generative AI. There's a 4-letter acronym for everything out there in the sun, under the sun, looking for posture management, things like that. How can we get more visibility when we are multi-cloud, when we have third-party suppliers that have their own cloud environments? So there's just so much more to wrap our hands around, as we have grown to this global and kind of do-it-yourself, this shadow IT environment where our team members, our business units, our partners can spin up new environments so quickly. It's become increasingly challenging as a security leader and security teams to wrap our arms around all that and get visibility to all of the technology expanse that our environments go to today.
I find it really interesting how cybersecurity has been forced to ebb and flow and change alongside the way that we work, right? You even alluded to being on premise. Everybody's in the same, 4 walls, give or take, right? And, who has access to the server room, all of those things is like securing the space. And now everyone is everywhere. You got to like check people's IP addresses. You got to figure out, when they're logging in and where and who has access to their their devices, and are they accessing things on their phone? And it just is so fascinating to think about the easier work becomes for us, right? The more access we have work, the harder the CISO job becomes because there's so many points of access. So what do you see people prioritizing now, or what do you suggest people prioritize?
I think making sure that you have the right monitoring controls and the right guardrails in place to maintain control while still allowing your users to be nimble and flexible in the world we live in today, right? So for example, we have all these different SASE technologies now that are in place instead of your traditional firewall, where it's looking at user behavior and things like that to verify, is this a legitimate authenticated user? You don't necessarily need to be, nowadays, we can't all be coming from the same IP address in an office building because that's just not the world we live in anymore, right? So I think I think the partnerships that our security teams have, not only with technology, but also with the business units to partner with them and enable the business to thrive and succeed and grow and bring in revenue and all those things while keeping the company safe. So I
Yeah.
think those conversations, those relationships are super important.
Yeah, let's talk a little bit about how we translate, technical risk into business impact, right? So, have there been specific strategies that work well for you in and not just communicating what those threats are, but like making the business impact, like what are the bits and bytes versus dollars and cents kind of iterations? Like how do you make that make sense being a CISO?
Right. So I think like in our world, a lot of security professionals, especially those that have been in the industry for a long time, think in zeros and ones, black and white, right? But I always try to explain, especially when I'm meeting with the business folks or when I'm meeting with my own team and then have to take these risks that the security team is identifying to the business. We have to think about what could go wrong if this security threat did occur, if this vulnerability did get exploited. What could go wrong with the business applications? How could it impact, if you're a retail environment and you have storefronts, how could that impact our customers in the stores? If you're manufacturing, how could that impact your manufacturing line, your suppliers? And you have to translate it in a way that they understand the downstream effects of these security risks so that they know sometimes people call it the WIFM, the what's in it for me, what could go wrong, right? And they feel what the impact to the business and to the financials could be. It's
Yeah.
important to be able to do that because at the end of the day, as a security professional and a security team, we're identifying these risks, but we are not the owners of the risks. If it's an outdated operating system that's supporting one of our key business applications, for example, the owner of that risk is the business application owner, right? And they have to, if they're not willing to remediate that risk, they have to be the ones to sign off and accept that and say, we can't take the downtime to do the patching or whatever it might be for these reasons. So if something goes wrong, that sits on my shoulders.
Yeah, yeah.
Getting those owners to accept that is not.
I was just gonna ask, like, that seems like a very tenuous conversation of, hey, listen, Susie Q, Billy Joe, right? Like that this is you need to I'm gonna document that we had this conversation. I'm gonna, I really implore you that this is something you need to be focused on. So how do you manage and have those hard conversations but still, make sure that you're being honest and transparent and like what are your strategies around that?
Right. I think that working with the business to demonstrate real life examples, what could go wrong. I was just having a conversation with other security leaders the other day, and hopefully your organization doesn't have an attack or an incident or a breach where you have to learn the hard way what could go wrong because it actually happened. But hopefully you can pull from examples that have happened to other companies in your industry where unfortunately they've had downtime in their systems or their business operations because of a security vulnerability. Another example that I've seen security teams employ that can be very beneficial is to bring in like a bug bounty program, especially if you have like direct to consumer facing applications or websites. You can partner with different organizations to do a bug bounty program so that your software development engineering teams can see my code isn't perfect. And there are professionals out there that are trying to find flaws in my code every single day and new ways to attack websites and applications and things like that. And but these bug bounty programs, it's the white hat hackers that are doing it for good,
Yeah.
right? To really help protect businesses, websites, so on and
Yeah.
so forth. So I think you have to figure out a way to demonstrate like the real life impact to these business owners to make them really feel what it could happen if something did go wrong.
Yeah, on a previous episode, we talked with, she owns a nonprofit. Her name's Tanisha, and she
Mhm.
talked about Black Girls Hack and teaching girls how to be ethical hackers
Yes.
and what that looks like. And it was just really cool to think about, we could teach kids a lot of things, but teaching them how to find flaws and how to navigate around those in an ethical way, I just thought was like a really cool.
Right.
So for those of you who haven't listened to that episode yet, I definitely would go back and listen to it. It was one of our earlier episodes.
Yeah.
It's a really
Source
great
information.
nonprofit. Yeah.
Absolutely.
So tell us about your role now. We've talked a little bit in other episodes also about being a virtual CISO and a vCISO and what that looks like. And, you've been in-house, you've been a consultant, you're working with GuidePoint now. So I almost want to ask, what is your favorite? But I don't want you to divulge if right now is not your favorite. But
Yeah.
what are the benefits of being a vCISO versus being in-house? Like what do you see the pros and cons of either of those?
Very, very different roles and responsibilities for sure. I think, when you're a CISO in-house, you oversee every single vertical within cybersecurity, right? Everything from disaster recovery to security operations and threat intel to risk management, you do it all. And especially the operational side of things and the incident response side of things are incredibly unpredictable. And incidents, cyber attacks, breaches, they occur any time of the day. They have no respect for vacations or holidays or time off or, and you have to be prepared for that. And you could have to drop things at a moment's notice. I will tell you, I never regret being an in-house CISO. The amount I learned so much during my almost 10 years at Callaway Golf, growing the team, overseeing the team, worked with some really talented folks. But it's very challenging to be a CISO today. It's a lot of pressure. It's a lot of liability. You don't usually get recognized when you're preventing the attacks. People just assume they don't realize that attacks are not happening, that people are scanning your networks and trying to get in all day, every day. But they absolutely notice when something does go wrong and you have an incident or an attack. And, no matter how well coordinated the team is, it still hurts, and so it's a hard thing to go through. And I've learned so many things over the course of my time as a CISO. And, it really is a demanding job. And I feel like I was fortunate enough to get into cyber at a young age. I was fortunate enough when I started my career in consulting, I worked in Big Four consulting, and I had a lot of fantastic leaders and partners at the firm I worked with. I was at KPMG. They had fantastic mentoring programs. I learned from so many people and had some really strong female leaders to look up to as well that made me believe that I could do anything. And I just had to have an open mind. I had to roll my sleeves up. I was open to learn almost anything, try new things. I knew I was young and I had time. And then I really hunkered down at Callaway and just really built out that cyber program, put a lot of blood, sweat, and tears and a lot of happiness too. It was a lot of fun as well. But I came to a point in my career and also in my personal life where I felt like, because of the demanding nature of the full-time CISO role, I felt like I had so much to give back to the community, both mentoring young people, especially young women and women and men from diverse backgrounds. I had so much that I wanted to give back to the community. Mentoring and coaching has always been important to me. I also love speaking engagements, and I didn't have the bandwidth to do as much of that as I would have liked. And that's when I started saying, maybe it's a time in my career to start considering something else. And I started looking at other options. If you had asked me 5-10 years ago, I don't even know if I could have told you what a channel partner was. Yeah. I knew we transacted business through a lot of the major channel partners, but I had no idea that a role like mine as a vCISO existed on this side of the house, or that there was a breadth of services and opportunities on this side of the house. And now that I'm here, I feel very fortunate. I do, deliver services, CISO services still in the vCISO role. But in addition to that, about 50% of my time is carved out for networking, speaking engagements, conferences, business development, mentoring. And so, we all think about we work hard, but we also have to think about what fills our cup as human beings. And I really reflected. I actually took a summer off to figure out what I was going to do next. And in the spring and summer, I kind of worked through that. And that's when I landed at GuidePoint Security. And it's been a little over 9 months now.
Yeah. Well, congratulations. I'm a big believer in finding ways that your work can have good rhythm with your life and your life with your work.
Mm-hmm.
And I think as we get a little, more mature and a little more wisdom, that changes in priority. I love what you said about when you're younger, you have all the time, you want to learn all the things and just absorb as much as you can in whatever career trajectory you have. But you do get to a point when you're like, okay, and now what? What do I want to do now? How do I want to spend my time? And I'm very proud of you, I'm going to say, for taking the time to make that choice. So I'm glad you're enjoying this. Yeah.
Yeah, I feel really fortunate. When I was at Callaway, I really had to roll up my sleeves and kind of grind hard sometimes being in our systems, in our tools as we were building the program. And I worried a lot when I came over to GuidePoint, will I still get those opportunities? And it's nice to see how much these firms now being on the other side, I'm like, oh, wow, they really do invest in training and certifications. And we have across the cyber verticals, we have deep subject matter experts that I can tap into where I can, continue to build my own toolkit to continue to stay relevant and informed in the cyber always changing. So to keep up is quite challenging. And that's what I was most worried about. But I'm learning in a different way now. And it's been a lot of fun.
Very cool. Well, thank you so much for your time, Emily. I'm so glad to know you and connect with you. Do you still get benefits or anything from your time at Callaway? You still golf or anything?
You know what? I'm actually spending more time golfing with my friends at Callaway. Right before I left, we had started a weekly golf lessons with someone at a neighborhood course here. And I don't make it every week, but I try my
Yeah.
best because it's a good
That's
way for me to connect with old colleagues as well.
Yeah, it's funny you had to leave the golfing industry in order to actually make time to spend some time
Right.
doing that. That's
Right.
great.
People always ask, "Are you an amazing golfer?" And I said, "Not really, but I have beautiful clubs."
I love that. Well, thanks again, and I look forward to seeing you in person real soon at one of those networking events.
You too. Thank you for having me.
Thank you for watching Channel Women in Security from CRN TV. Be sure to subscribe for more stories from the women who are shaping cybersecurity, breaking barriers, and making their mark on the channel ecosystem.